Oratio Eloquentum is a speech competition, like I said, for our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade scholars in our logic school. It is a competition that tests or demonstrates 3 of the 5 canons of rhetoric. So the first 2 would be arrangements and, no, I'm blanking out, arrangement and, I forgot. Arrangement and, help me out. What? Invention, thank you. We don't do that. We get to choose from a selection of speeches, pieces of play, literature. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And we concentrate on the other 3, the memory, the style, and the delivery. And I'll talk about each of those as we get going. But I want to tell you how the competition works in case some of you want to take that home and use that in your schools or in your homeschool co-ops or whatever you can use for your education at your school. The competition really takes about a month. And at the end of January, beginning of February, I start getting everything together for the Oratio Eloquentum competition. I get my handy-dandy little binder out with, all the notes I've had over the multiple years that we've been doing this. And I have to get together judges. I get the packets together for the students and things like that. Once it's time to get the students ready to go, I start out with a letter. All the letter is just explaining to the parents what the Oratio Eloquentum competition is and gives them some due dates. We run over this. The Oratio competition in our logic school somehow got to be a very big deal. It is a stressful project for the students, and they really get into it. They really like the Oratio competition. So I give them the letter, and I also give them the packet of all the selections that they can choose from. This is anywhere from the Learn by Heart curriculum that we use pretty much on a daily, weekly basis. The Learn by Heart is anything from John 1:1 at the beginning of the school year to there's Oh Captain, My Captain, like I said. We also have the Eagle, some easier ones, some harder ones, and then the Oratio competition adds on some extra much harder ones. So I give the students the letter and explain what we're going to do. They all groan for a little bit until they realize they're very excited about it. And then they go through the packet, and I give them about a week. The Friday after I give them the packet is a huge day in our logic school. They talk about it days in advance. Because what I tell them is, since I really only allow about 3 selections per class of each of our presentations, you got to get in here. It's first come, first serve. So no other day in the school year do we have a line of children outside the door waiting to get in. I tell them at 7:45 when the doors open, that is the first time I'm going to listen to anyone's selection. And they are very excited. Some of these students have been deciding which selection they're going to do since the previous Oratio Eloquentum competition was over. My children have been one of them. They think about this all year long. So at 6:45 in the morning, when the doors open, there is a line of children outside. Even the teacher kids, the ones that play in the hallway before school started, even they have to wait outside just like everybody else, so everybody gets a fair shot at all the different selections that we have. And when the doors open, there's a line in my classroom going out of the hallway. Teachers come in and check, how's it going? Because the students are so excited about picking their selections. And they get to choose their selection, and they also get to choose the dates in which they'll do different presentations throughout the process. So when they come in and they tell me what selection they want, they're choosing 4 different levels. So we have a level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, obviously. And each of them is assigned different points. And previous to this point, we've talked about what it's going to take to accomplish your goals in our Oratio competition. And it really boils down to there's 3 types of students. There's those that are in it to win it. They know what they're going to do next year as soon as I hand out the prize checks the previous year. They know what they're going to do. There are those that have no interest in getting up in front of people and speaking whatsoever. They're going to either find a really, really easy one or do their best on a more difficult one to get more points because it's graded. I'll explain that. And then there's sixth graders who are absolutely clueless as to what they're about to get hammered by. So the ones that are very excited and are in it to win it, they know ahead of time that in order to mathematically move through the competition and get to the final round, you need to do a 4. You must do a 4. Each of the levels is assigned different points based on difficulty. So a 4 is worth 10 points, a 3 is worth 7 points, a 2 is worth 5, and a 1 is worth 3 points automatically. Mathematically, you got to do a 4 if you want to move on. Also, you can get the highest grade with a 4. So I have a chart that I put up in my classroom so they can kind of see what would they like to earn, what are mom and dad going to be happy with as far as grades go. And so they can get a very high grade with a 4, and then there's those students who are just happy getting it over with. They are perfectly happy with a middle to low B. And I just tell them, well, pick an easy one, but you're going to have to do your best on it. So there's those types of students. And then there's the sixth graders who have seen the big kids do this year in and year out. Some of them go for really, really hard ones, and then they understand just how difficult this is. And there's some of them just pick the ones they know. But the ones that are the most fun are obviously the ones that are in it to win it. So the competition has 3 stages. The first stage is just in the classroom. And what we do is the students and I judge each presentation, and I coach them along a little bit as we go. So when it's time for each student's presentation on their assigned date that they signed up for, we have a very decent routine that they go through that makes this very, very efficient. So I will tell the students which 4 students are doing presentations, and I'll assign 4 judges for each student. And the way this works, each of the students is worth 10% of their grade, which makes me worth 60% of the grade. And this teaches the students how to critique each other, how to think about what they would do to their presentation to make theirs better than that one, and things like that. It's nice doing the 40-60 thing, and I tell the students this in advance. If the students are worth 40% and the students are worth 60%, this competition is going the way I think it's going to go mathematically. So I tell the students ahead of time, you're not going to be able to prop up your friends by giving them the highest grades possible, and you're also not going to be able to tank the person you're having drama with from yesterday, because if it goes either way, I'll just dump your grade and we'll do the average differently. So the students get a chance to grade. I make sure everybody's got their little Oratio packet so they can follow along. I assign the judges. The students will come up and we get going. So when they are judging, they get a smaller version of the score sheet. Now, like I said, we deal with 3 of the 5 canons of rhetoric: the memorization, the style, and the delivery. So as we're filling out the score sheets, the students write down a name, they write down the selection, then they write down the degree of difficulty. That's set. A 10, a 7, a 5, or a 3, depending on 1, 2, 3, 4. And on memorization, all of these are on a scale of 1 to 10. On memorization, we really practice at the beginning of the competition on how we should judge to be fair. And so we talk about how I would judge on the memorization. And I tell them on a scale of 1 to 10, you are going to have to be perfect to get a 10. Now, of course, classmates give their friends 10s, but mathematically it works out. I tell them you are going to have to be perfect to get a 10. The moment you mess up, you get a 9. And then the scale on what it takes to go from a 9 to an 8 to a 7 to a 6 depends on how difficult your selection is. And the difficulty of the selection can be anything from Psalm 23 or John 1 to, oh, Captain My Captain, I think is a 3, all the way up to Atticus Finch speech, courtroom speech, and To Kill a Mockingbird, or Caesar I, we call it, Caesar II, Queen Elizabeth before the Spanish Armada, Patrick Henry's speech, Give Me Liberty or Death. Those are some very difficult, long speeches to get to do. So, Oh, Captain, My Captain, missing a couple words, gets you like an 8. Patrick Henry missing a couple words, you're still working on a 9. And the students know this and they work together. So the averages work on they get 3 rounds in class. So the very, very first round, they're allowed to use a note card. And generally the memorization scores are 4, 5, and 6. And we'll talk about it. And I'll say, well, Summer, she did okay. She missed a bunch of this. So if it were me, I'd probably give her a 6. But a 4 is fair, or a 5 is pretty good. And we talk about this together in class so they can learn how to critique each other fairly. And as the second round is purely memorized, and our memorization scores usually start to go up. So the first round, they'll get 4, 5, 6s, and then they'll start getting 6, 7s, and 8s. And then the last round is the round that really counts. This is the one that gets them from the classroom round to the competition round. And they'll start to get 7s, 8s, and 9s on memorization, 10s on memorization already. So we work on memorization. I coach them through, and I tell them what they missed and what words they tweak and things like that. And the other things that they're looking for, the degree of difficulty, the memorization. Then the next one is their physical demeanor. So the physical demeanor I explain to students is eye contact, facial expressions, gestures, and we talk about what works and what doesn't work. And really, when I'm coaching them, I try to explain to them that you are talking to the audience. Obviously, 8th graders, they'll start out, oh, Captain, my Captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship is weathered, every rack, the prize we sought is won, the port is near, the bells, and they're not talking to anybody. And I try to get them, all right, well, first of all, number 1, slow down. Number 2, use the room a little bit. And then I'll get, oh, Captain, my Captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship is weathered, every rack, the prize we sought was won, the port is here. And they just move back and forth. Some of the funnier ones are, for instance, in Paul Revere's Ride. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere on the 18th of April, 75. Hardly a man is alive. Who remembers that famous day or year? If the British come by land or sea from the town of Diet, hang a lantern aloft in the belfry arch of the old North Church towers, sing like, 1 if I land and 2 if I see, and I on the opposite shore will be. And I tell them, avoid the cheerleader thing on that, because that's really distracting and makes it difficult to understand the story. So they slow down on their gestures. The eye contact, believe it or not, logic school students, they start to figure out right away. The ones that are going to, there are very few of my students who just can't do the eye contact. They know I'm going to force them to do this anyway. They might as well work at it. So a bunch of them figure out to look at the tops of their heads. I find the ones that only look at me or only look at the clock, but they try to work on their eye contact a little bit. Their facial expressions, some of them can use. One of my favorite, least favorite, whatever you want to call it, stories is the gestures for whose woods these are. I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods. And I said, are you having a conversation and telling this poem, or are you playing charades? Because this is kind of hard for us to follow when you're so distracting. So we work on the use of the stage, the talking to the audience, the eye contact, the facial expressions, the gestures. That would all come under physical demeanor. So again, the students give a score between 1 to 10. That was perfect. And I tell them, there are not going to be very many 10s on these items of the score sheet where you could be working on. I'm not giving you a 10 until you earn a Golden Globe. So we talk about that stuff. So degree of difficulty, memorization, physical demeanor, and then delivery. Delivery is really the one that's the most fun to talk about. Because it's also probably one of the hardest ones for them to do. The delivery is all about using their voice to get the audience's attention. You use your physical body demeanor to keep their attention, but I think I they use your voice to get their attention. So we talk about tone and speed and volume and how you can use those things to make the speech work for you. So, of course, there's the ones that in the middle of their speeches say, you're going to have to be louder, slow down, that's constant. Everybody's very first coaching comment is always slow down, slow down. And we talk about using volume and tone and speed. For instance, if you want to get someone's attention, because the point you're trying to make in your speech is important. Use your pastor voice. I think that slow down, lower the tone, drop the volume, and people are going to have to listen to you. But if your speech in Charge of the Light Brigade is slashed all their sabers bare, slashed as they turn around, sabering the gunners there, the speed moves up, the volume moves up. I'm slinging this all over the place. And you get that half a league onward, all in the valley of death. You hear the horses going with the tone and the speed. So we talk about those things to get them understanding exactly what they're trying to do as they learn to eloquently present in front of people. And this is just really a practice round. We're not having them responsible for writing their own speeches. They're not responsible for adding rhetorical devices or alliteration or anything that pastors would have to do. But what they're doing is just practicing being in front of people. And I think they do a really good job. In the classroom round, then, they present once with a card, once for memory, and once for a score. And of those, once we're done with the scores, they move on to the round of 12. It's called the round of 12 because we hypothetically take 4 students from each class, 4 6th graders, 4 7th graders, 4 8th graders, the top 4 from each class. And I tell them ahead of time, I can play with that number as well. For instance, this year, the 7th grade class was decent. The 6th grade class, like I said, they have no idea what's about to hit them. But the 8th grade class the 7th grade class was serious. The 8th grade class was good. The 6th grade class, 7th grade class was serious. So the 6th graders got 4 kids that went to the round of 12. The 8th graders got 3 really good ones. And the 7th graders got 5 of them. Mathematically, it was very, very difficult because the number 7 7th grader, who doesn't get to make the round of 12, was higher than number 4 for the 8th graders. They worked that hard. I was very impressed. I had some heartbroken children, but they worked really hard on their Oratios. The round of 12, the day I post that, like I said, there's some tears, there's some excitement and things like that. I post that. And the round of 12 is usually 2 weeks later. In between each round, I give them about 2 weeks to practice and things like that. Now, the round of 12 is just those 12 students that make the semifinals. And they're judged by teachers, pastors, our music director, experts, adults within our Savior community. They also know these students. And the round of 12, they draw cards to pick their order, and they present in front of these 3 judges. And the 3 judges listen to their Oratios, and then they critique them immediately. Some of you that know Kate Telke, she's our principal. She was a very good judge, giving them excellent advice on specifics on what they could fix. And they talk about the use of the stage. When I choose my judges for the round of 12, it gets difficult because anyone who has children in the logic school can't be a judge. So there are teachers who have a 6th, 7th, or 8th grader, or a pastor. Pastor Krieg, who is a really good judge, can't be a judge for about the next 10 years because he's got children going through the logic school. And so we do that. That's a really fun round because I'm still very nervous with them presenting in front of audiences because I'm just so proud of what they can do that I don't want to have to whisper them a line or anything like that. And I haven't had to whisper a line in 6 or 7 years, but I still get nervous. But the judges make it very easy for them to do their presentation and then just listen to an adult, say thank you. A lot of them really think it through as they're going on. They'll talk to me, okay, when I get to the finals, and they don't even know who's in the finals yet, but the judges really do a good job helping me to understand how to present and just the stress of competition and things like that. At the round of 12, the top 6 move on to the finals. And usually choosing the top 3 is easy. The judges know who 1, 2, 3 are going to be. It's the 4, 5, 6 that's sometimes it's surprising to me. Sometimes there's some discussion. And if it ever comes down to it, we just look at the math on the score sheets and I kind of work those 3 judges through together. I am glad by the round of 12, I'm no longer a judge. I am an announcer, and the rest is all in your hands because they are so good, and I get very invested in these tiny little speeches that they're doing. So they discuss, and we get to 6 students who are going to go to the finals. And the finals, again, they get about 2 weeks. They will be in church in front of the whole student body and parents. I have parents and grandparents who have been coming for years. Mrs. White, Pastor White's wife, her grandson, Christian, did Oratio. Well, he is going to be a sophomore in college. Did Oratio a long time ago. He had speech difficulty things when he was little. She bawled. She cried when Christian was in the finals. He didn't win, but she bawled that he could do this in front of an audience like that. Christian is now, he could talk in front of it to anybody. But back then, that was a big deal to her, and she comes every single year. And she still has other grandchildren coming through, but she tears up every time we talk Oratio. So the finals are those 6 students. My judges for the finals are a little bit more difficult because I try to get people from outside the Our Savior community as much as I possibly can to kind of make it new and fresh for the students. I always pick one of our teachers who insists that he's going to be the finals judge, and that also keeps my year to year a little bit consistent. Before I asked Mr. Chemnitz to be my permanent judge, there were some years where the teachers would come to me and say that this is not how this was supposed to go. This person did not win. They were not the best, but the judges judged. And so Mr. Chemnitz really keeps some consistency for me. And then I choose lawyers from the Our Savior congregation or Our Savior student community. I've had a publisher of the little newspaper, some authors. Let's see, what else do I have? An organizer, just people who know what it takes to be in front of an audience. Pastors from Memorial helped me as well. Know what it takes to speak in front of a bunch of people. And I try to get at least 3 or 4, plus Mr. Chemnitz, to again give as fair a number as I can. And this gets stressful for the students. Obviously, they've never even met these people. It's a whole different ball game in front of them. I would love, unless y'all want to gather around my computer, to show you, but apparently we don't have the connections and stuff for the finals. I can play it as loud as I can and hold it for you. But I might do that because I'm really proud of Summer. She's my daughter. In the finals, it takes us a little while to do microphones and things like that. They get in costume. We have knights, we have princesses, we have lawyers for Atticus Finch, Romeo and Juliet. You get the Juliets. Charge of the Light Brigade, you get military uniforms. The Raven, bathrobe and a book. So they do all that stuff together. And it's really fun just to see them get so excited. I announce each student in between each student's presentation. We need a little bit of time, so I kind of explain the tone, the speed, and the volume to all the little kids in front. I have first graders and third graders will, fill a little bit of time for me, and do their little presentation of the eagle or something that they've been working on, and it becomes a big deal. And when the judges go to the back room, I've had anything from 10-minute discussions, because it's a money round now. The first place gets $200, third place gets $100, or second place gets $100, third place gets $50. So it's a big deal now. The student body, I can hear them chit-chatting about who should win. Peter was awesome. Well, Peter's always awesome. Peter's the hero of the school, the athlete, and all that stuff. I want to show his video too, but we'll see. But, I can hear them talking about it. This year, the judges were stuck on number 1 and number 2. Mathematically, they had the exact same number. And I said, well, one of them is my daughter, so y'all need to decide. Do you want to do number 1, number 2? And they said, I don't care who it is. We want to split it. We want to tie for first. And I said, okay, we've never done that before, but I'm in charge, so let's split it. But the judges, I think it's stressful for them too, because they don't understand what a logic school 6th, 7th, and 8th grader can do in front of people. So that's very, very cool. This year, we had a Romeo and Juliet, a Atticus Finch, The Raven. Summer did Patrick Henry, Give Me Liberty or Death. Patrick Henry seems to be my family's little thing. My middleest redhead daughter did Give Me Liberty or Death. And I wanted her to do something with tone. She's a sassy redhead. So she was practicing one time, and she said, "Sir, there is no longer any room for hope." Just in the sassy. And I said, Reagan. I know you do not want to go any further than the classroom. I know you don't. You're not that kind of student. Please do it like that. Please do it sassy like that, because tone changes so much as you're going. In Julius Caesar, what I did before, and if you say, but Caesar says he is ambitious, and sure, he is an honorable man, and roll your eyes, you've completely changed the meaning of what you're trying to say. So tone, I wanted her to do it sassy, but she wouldn't do it sassy. But it would have been very funny. It would have been very funny. Very cool. So that we work on all that stuff. The point of our Oratio Eloquentum competition, and then I may just play Summer and Peter's so you can hear them, and otherwise I'm like 15 minutes short. But the point is, in my literatus lingua, language arts at Our Savior, I tell the students over and over and over again, in our writing, in our competition, you are going to have to get in front of people, period. Doesn't matter what you're going to do, you're going to have to get in front of people. And I need you to be able to act like I taught you something, like you actually know or an expert on what you are dealing with. You have to present yourself in such a way that they will listen to you. And most importantly, as you grow up in the next couple of years, I almost hope you have the opportunity where somebody's going to attack your faith. And you are, whether that's high school or college, because our kids go to all kinds of, I hope you get the opportunity for somebody to attack you, because I know some of y'all, you can get up in front of them and make a presentation that will just destroy their argument. You will put it together logically like we did in class. So my hope and my biggest goal for the Oratio Eloquentum competition is not the $200 that some of them are so excited about, but my hope is that someday when it all comes to a point, they can stand up in front of people and eloquently and efficiently and properly defend their faith or their point of view or whatever it's going to be. And they already make me proud, but make Jesus proud that with the gifts that he's given them to present in front of people. So that's the whole point of the Oratio Eloquentum competition to me, is that final product that I will never get to see. I get to see the finals, and not only am I, thank goodness that's over, but when the parents come and say, yikes, that was amazing, it's really fun. It's, teachers don't always get that immediate gratification, but I do on that day. It is really, really fun. So that's all I've got, but I have time. So I was going to force you to watch Summers, and then I'll play Peters for you, but you'll probably only get to hear it. And if I can get the Wi-Fi juice to actually work, but Summer is, that didn't work, very driven. Very, very driven. And she don't like to lose. She made it to the finals as a 6th grader and didn't win. And so she's going to try her best to win. She's a powerful little thing. She likes sports and all that stuff. So she did Patrick Henry's Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death. She's all ready to go for next year. She knows what she's going to do, but I'm not going to give it away like y'all care. But I wish you guys could see it. It's better to hear it, though, because I think she did a really good job. And then I'll play Peters for you as well.
There is no longer any room for hope.
Can you hear? And it squeals for a little bit.
If we mean to preserve, inviolate those inestimable privileges for which we have been so long contending, if we mean not basely to abandon the noble struggle for which we have been so long engaged, and which we have pledged ourselves never to abandon until the glorious object of our contest shall be obtained, we must fight. I repeat it, sir, we must fight. An appeal to arms and to...
Oh, it's buffering. Let me try. Was that enough? Not for me. Let's try starting Peters. Peter is adopted from Haiti, so he came to me, Mr. Morrissey. I really want to do Martin Luther King Jr., I Have a Dream. But my mom doesn't want me to. Peter's African American, his mom's white. He said, Mom doesn't want me to take advantage of this, and because that's Peter. This. And he said, am I going to be able to do it right? And I said, Peter, whatever you try, I know is going to be good. In 7th grade, Peter went up and did his first round and nailed it. His very first round, nailed it. I said, Peter, that was crazy. I've never seen that happen before. So let's see what I can get up here.
5 score years ago, a great American, in whose symbolic shadow we stand today, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of...
Yep. Okay, but I did think of something while I was listening to Peter. I had a backup plan in case I couldn't get the Wi-Fi to work, which is just Sarah's video of Summer. Can you still hear? This could be the whole thing. I'm not proud.
Shall we acquire the means of effectual resistance Forbidden Almighty God, I know not what course others may take. But as for me, give me liberty or give me death.
I thought that was pretty good. All right, well, thank you very much for listening to me. I did not make a bunch of handouts, but if you want me to send our packet or our letter as a PDF first, because it would probably be easier and you can look it over, just have a piece of paper up here. If you'll just write your email address down, I can just email that to you later today if you want me to. But I thank you very much for humoring me, especially listening to Summer. And I apologize for the audio and video that it wasn't big enough for everybody, but thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate it. Did anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When they go up through the rounds, do they have the same piece that they...
The same one the whole time. Yep. And they're not allowed to do the same one from one year to the next. The only time they were allowed to do the same one 2 years in a row is when COVID canceled Oratio. So those 7th graders were still allowed to use theirs in 8th grade if they wanted to.
Have any of your students participated in the CCLE?
Not in the recitation. And I wanted Summer to do it, but in the Latin recitation, Jackson, who's just really good at memorization but doesn't take Oratio too terribly seriously, he did the Latin recitation and won. So they know what they're doing. Can I always get them to do it? That's another thing. But Summer said, no, I want to win Oratio. But I said, okay, you could do both. You know that, right? I just. But anything else? All right, thank you all very, very much.